Welcome to the Upreneur podcast for the University of Entrepreneurs. I am your host, Jeremy Straub. Gary, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Jeremy. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm glad we got it back on the schedule.
Absolutely.
So you've been in Florida for how long now?
Well, I moved down here in 1978, and for my senior year of high school.
Okay, good deal.
And then
so you're a native for the most part.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, I still have my Jersey roots.
Okay, good
still
deal.
still like Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
But been down here a long time. I've had, right after college, went to New York for about 4 years. They say if you can make it anywhere, make it start in New York.
Yeah.
Had a stint in Charlotte for about a year and a half, and in Baltimore for about 4 or 5 years. But outside of that, Florida boy.
So what made you decide to come back to Florida and really have a business in Florida, opposed to getting a feel of the Northeast and kind of the whole East Coast? Was there something about Florida that kind of drew you here?
Oh yeah, so much, but certainly the weather. But I think even more than the weather was when I first started working in South Florida. I worked for a couple different companies. I was about 25, 26. I started an ad agency. And after working in New York for 4 years and seeing how competitive it is, and I did pretty well, but it's very competitive. South Florida was a breeze. I mean, back then, it's totally different now, but back then, if you showed up, you got to work. There were so many people in every sector who would have appointments with you, and you're waiting, or 40 minutes later, you didn't realize they're not coming. Yeah. So I showed up. Yeah. And luckily I think we did some good work for the agency. We had some major real estate clients down here, so I got to work very closely with George Perez and Terry Stiles and Joel Altman. And
this was for your advertising agency?
For the ad agency.
So your first entree into entrepreneurship was in your mid-20s then, that you actually started then. Mm-hmm. Was there something early on in your career that got you comfortable getting into entrepreneurship, or family, or people you knew on that? Or was it a matter of you moved to Florida and there wasn't any companies based here and you said, I got to start something on my own? How did you decide to actually jump into it?
I jumped into it because I didn't understand something that happened in my life. So I was working for a company that was a national economic development publication. It was located on Sample Road in Coral Springs. Yeah. And I started doing well in sales. They made me publisher within 6 months, and took the company from about $1 million in sales to about $10 million in about four years.
It's pretty good.
And then they fired me. So I scratched my.
You got too expensive?
I got too expensive, number one. But the other thing was the gentleman who owned the publication was in the process of selling it to Billboard publications, and they had this $200,000 compensation back in the mid 80s. Yeah. And he said, I'm going to get a lot more money if I wipe him off the books. Yeah. I'm sure his accountant told him that. Yeah. And so they got rid of me. And then I was talking to one of my bigger advertisers who had an ad agency in northern New Jersey. Yeah. And he said, hey, you want to go into business together? So I said, absolutely. So we were partners from day one, and we built a nice little firm down here. Yeah. And then, so you built that firm, and then you went back towards, you built your own company, got the entrepreneurship going, and then you moved back towards a W-2 employee agency with the Business Journal, right? That's correct. Yeah. So how'd you kind of keep going back and forth? Because I think a lot of our listeners are people that are W-2 that are thinking about going to start their own business, and then there's people that just start their own business that are sitting here going, I don't know if I want to do this or not. How do I get this thing scaled, or how do I get it profitable? Right. Or should I just go back and know that I have a guaranteed income coming through, and kind of put it as a side hustle per se for a business, than opposed to my normal income? So talk through kind of what happened at that point of what made you either sell the business and decide to go and slow things down, or just decide, I wanted to make sure I had was it an opportunity with the Business Journal at that point? Give me what happened. First of all, anybody who's thinking about it, and I think being an entrepreneur is the greatest life in the world. It's not easy. It's difficult. Tapping. Yeah. But anyway, but what happened to me was pretty simple. the chairman, I was dropping some ads off at the Business Journal. Back then, there was no electronic transferring.
Yeah.
So I was dropping several of my clients' ads off, film, at the Business Journal offices. And I met a guy named Ray Shaw, who was the chairman of American City Business Journals, who previous to that was the CEO of Dow Jones.
Yeah.
And we just had a very good conversation. And, he convinced me to sell my company and to become the publisher of the Baltimore Business Journal.
Okay.
And, I thought at the time, the agency was doing well, but I didn't have strong corporate experience. So I figured I'd move to Baltimore for a couple of years. I didn't have any kids at the time and was newly married, and it'd be kind of an adventure for us. And come back, take 2 years, get some corporate experience and start something. Yeah. Unfortunately, that 2 years went into 15 years, right? Because I just loved what I was doing so much. Yeah. And then I realized, I had to get back to my roots and got back to being an entrepreneur again.
Yeah, well, I spent 15 years on the corporate side, and my father was a business owner and entrepreneur, and he shared with me when I graduated college that he wants me to work for a Fortune 500 company that had a really good sales training. He wanted me to learn sales, and a really good development program for leadership. And so that brought me to a Fortune 50 company, and my plan was only to be there 2-3 years, go through the training program, and then go either work for his business or become an entrepreneur on my own, and that went for 15 years too.
Exactly.
So it's the same as you.
No, I have an interesting story around there because my dad, after 5 years out of college, he was a stockbroker, and he was begging me to go in and be a partner with him. Yeah. And at the time, he thought I was crazy not to. Because I've inherited a book of business, and you got obviously you know the industry. Yeah. Now he says, something, I'm so happy you turned me down. Right. You're your own path, and you've done pretty well. So, getting your father's approval is a nice thing.
Well, my father said the same thing too. So I went there, and then he came back to me probably 5 years later, and I'm like, Dad, I'm priced out. You can't afford me anymore.
That's great. That's true.
I would love to go work with you, but you can't afford me unless you want to give me ownership in the business. How did your father was a broker and in the advisor side of the business, so he understood business. He probably talked to you about sales and business. Mm-hmm. Did that have an influence on you at all, becoming an entrepreneur and his background of just being in business and evaluating companies as a broker? And him being in a commission-based environment where he was controlling his own income. Do you think that had an influence at all, or is it just a matter of something else that influenced you in entrepreneurship?
I'm lucky my father's still alive. He's 82, and I have a very, very close relationship with him. To me, he's the greatest guy and my best friend. But he didn't have that influence on me. He was kind of like your father, I think. He wanted me. He said, go get a good job, stay there, get a pension, and you maybe switch once in your career. And as I got into business, it just didn't make sense what he was telling me. Yep. And it was because he never thought of that because his father never thought of it. So it was really just watching people around me, and I was so. I think it really happened with the ad agency, and I was so impressed with some of the developers I worked with. Yep. And I thought about becoming a developer, which maybe I should have done, right. But this it's worked out great. But I talked to a lot of my clients, and this is when I had a partner, and that's when I started to do it all on my own. Yeah.
Well, I think you got a little bit of that entrepreneur bug when you were in the advertising side, but I think it's changed. And if we think about our parents, the idea of a job for 30 years where you're getting the pension, the guaranteed income, you slowly work your way up the corporate ladder. Those paths aren't available much. And to be honest, people don't want them. And people are graduating college right now and wanting freelance jobs. They want to have the flexibility to work. The idea of working remotely for a year and traveling the world is appealing. And I think we were probably that cross generation that just started to see the idea of one way, the long period of time. Right. And although I think we were kind of in between, we had 15 years and then went back to it, same as me.
Exactly.
So when you went back, you got out of the Business Journal and you moved back into running your publication then, and you started the magazine, and now you're chairman of Lifestyle Media Group. You have another business, which we'll talk some time on. How did you, from a mindset perspective, make that jump again? Because you have this guaranteed income. You were on a clear path to go other places. You can kind of hang out, right? You got a pretty job that you got good systems. You had probably great people around you.
Right.
It was comfortable, and you decided to go. I'm assuming you found some investors to back you a little bit, and you kind of built your own business to be able to go through, to be able to build something you want to do. How did you get the gumption to do that at that point? And it was probably mid-career you were doing it in, so it's a scary time to do it. It's the family, pressures, house, all the stuff that goes along with life, mid-level in your career. What made you actually decide to make the jump back?
Well, I saw where when I started working at the Business Journal, it was a very entrepreneurial company.
Yep.
And that was back in 91, I guess, 1992. And the company changed a lot. It became very, very corporate, and if what worked in Seattle should work in South Florida, but to me that doesn't make sense. Plus, the media world was changing so dramatically, and the writing was on the wall with newspapers. So I thought it was a good time to leave, and luckily they were great to me. They gave me a multi-year severance package as long as I didn't compete with them for 2 years.
Right.
So I used that as the funding. I used that to really pay my bills and save a little bit, and it took us about 6 months to be profitable, so it was pretty quick.
That's real quick.
Yeah, and I'm really thankful for the time I had there, and I loved it. But they helped me. They helped me financially start my own business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So they probably are kicking themselves for that in hindsight.
Oh,
right?
a little bit.
So you make the jump into the media realm, which is not an easy market to get in. I think my father, although he had car dealerships, he always loved the advertising and marketing, and he talked about he should have probably got into marketing.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that want to be in that industry. Any advice you would give to someone that's thinking about in the media or marketing side? Now, maybe it's not an actual publication, which is a little bit more cost intensive. Maybe it's beginning on social, or beginning on just on digital in the marketing. But it's a changing landscape. The old media powers are not the ones that are running it right now, and a lot of startup, even newsletters, are starting to get traction over the old publications. Any advice you would give to people that are getting into the industry or thinking about it?
Sure. It's so different. And even when you look at the news coverage now, it's so partial. And but for somebody getting into the industry, they have to know digital inside and out. We're a digital agency, and we see. We just started our digital agency a year ago, and the growth in that has been exponentially month to month. You can quantify that. You know where the results are, and you meet with your client every month, and you can show where the business is coming or not. And then
it's actually an ROI to what they're doing, which
right.
was hard to get in a publication manner.
Yeah, look, if you own a hair salon and you're in one of our lifestyle products, you're going to get foot traffic. You're going to get people coming in. But we chatted about this before. If you're a B2B and you see an ad for a wealth advisory firm, people aren't going to just switch who they do business with. It's such a relationship business. But one of the things we do is, I talk about our publications.
Can you share? I know you have 13 publications, but what are some of the publications that you have?
We have about 10, 11 lifestyle publications. So we own Las Olas Lifestyle, Weston Lifestyle, Boca del Rey Lifestyle. There's one in Coral Springs, one in Parkland, one in Lighthouse Point, and Pompano. Then we have 2 Weston publications. We just acquired one of them, Weston Lifestyle.
Congratulations on the acquisition.
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool.
And we got in Weston and in Doral, and then we had a Pinecrest, Carl Gable's publication as well.
Yeah.
So, and then the other ones are the South Florida Business and Wealth,
right.
which is one of the top local business publications in the country. And a couple of years ago, or really just about 18 months ago, we started Tampa Bay Business and Wealth, and I'm crazy about our publisher over there, Bridget Bello. Yeah. She knew Tampa so well. She was the publisher of the Business Journal there, and she brought a couple of key people over with her, and she's done a phenomenal job. And it's about getting good people around you. You can't do everything.
Yeah. So any myths that you would debunk in getting into the marketing or publication or media space? And you hear people saying print's dead. So I'm sure there's some myths out there regarding media and marketing that
Sure.
If I'm somebody new thinking about it, I have an idea either for a publication or a newsletter or some type of digital marketing. Any advice you would give somebody or that they might hear that's not true regarding your industry?
Well, when you look at when you look at what Ad Age magazine's writing about and the industry is, some national magazines are hurt and getting closed down and going more to a digital platform. The newspaper industry is 1/100th of what it was a decade ago, but local magazines have increased over the past 5 years. The revenue has increased, more starting.
Interesting.
South Florida is a incredibly competitive landscape for these type of lifestyle magazines. We won. Our editor is a guy named Kevin Kaminsky, who's won more Florida Magazine Association awards than anybody in the state. So we pride ourselves on trying to be high quality. But then you have competitors who are kind of working out of their garage, letting their advertisers write the editorial and undercutting us in rates, and they can because they have no overhead. We decided to take the route that we have a lot of overhead, more than I'd like, but we got a great team, and we win more awards than anybody else. At the end of the day, to me, it's about profit. Awards are great, but it's about profit, and the publications operate, lifestyle magazines operate between 10 and 15% margins, so that's okay. The business magazines are more around 25% margins. And then we said I have some other businesses that have much higher margins, and I'm a margin guy.
So, and we'll get into that too. You've mentioned a couple of the people that are part of your team, and it seems like you've put an emphasis on bringing over talent and making sure that you surround yourself with some good people. Can you talk about how you've been able to find and develop talent and kind of why that's an important piece to your success in business?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people doubt beyond, and sometimes they're right, but most of the time they're wrong, is I don't need to hire somebody to run a publication that has a ton of publication experience or any publication experience. We're looking for the right person, and it's really about heart. And if I can find somebody who's vested in the company, wants to make a lot of money, wants to put a lot of effort in, and is bright, I'll find a spot for them. I mean, I've actually created some businesses around people I just met, and I figured that I got to have this guy or this gal, work with me, and we didn't have anything that made sense, so we've created businesses around that.
Very cool.
And it's to me it's 95% the people.
Have you seen that pay off? As you find a really good talent, you're saying this is a person I want to be in business with. There's an opportunity for them, and you've created opportunities. Have you seen that pay off when you kind of didn't expect it? You weren't sure to. You're like, I like this person, but I don't know if I'm putting them in the right thing to be able to do it.
Oh, of course. And sometimes it doesn't work out. But it's a minimal investment to find that out. 3 months, 6 months. It's with you and one of the guys who works for you. 3 months, 6 months. Whether they're going to hit a home run or not. And and you gotta. I like to hire slowly and fire fast. So we have measurements and goals they need to hit. And the first 6 months is all about activities. And if they're not there, then you got to cut the cord. And you're doing them a favor because they're just not going to be
they're
right
not
for the
going to be
business.
happy there. And some people are just more uncomfortable with change that they're not going to make a decision.
Right.
They'll quit and stay, as I say.
Right, exactly.
They quit in their mind, but they decide to stay.
That's a good one. Yes, absolutely.
So has there been any bad advice that you hear about the media industry and getting in the media industry, whether it's somebody that's joining a company or whether starting a thing on your own, that you said, I just wish people wouldn't say that, or this is just some bad advice I hear regarding it?
Well, people like to lump print into one category. And there's been a lot of studies on this, and the most effective medium out there right now is online. Right behind that is magazines. Where magazines have, especially local ones, are doing very well compared to radio and TV. TV's gotten so fragmented.
Yep.
There's 1,000 channels.
Yep.
And
people are cutting the cord, as they say, right?
Yeah, and most people, they tape something and they go through the commercials, right? On radio, the demos of people who are listening to regular radio have gone down tremendously. Yep. Most are listening to Sirius, or they're listening to
Spotify
or Pandora.
Yep.
And so that's a very tough business right now. So, a magazine, and our strategy is people want to have a little quiet time, and they want to have a pullback and be able to sit down. And people still like the physical feel of a high-end magazine.
You're 100% right. So if I'm on an airplane, I want to read a magazine. Even though I can look at my phone, I just feel like it's relaxing. Or at night, when I'm done and I've had so much screen time in my face, checking email or doing things, I'll pull out a lifestyle magazine, or I'll pull one of the local magazines that I feel are relatively not going to make me think too hard regarding like business or regarding, some type of political landscape.
Right.
But it gives me a sense of locally what's going on. I didn't even think about how there's probably an increase in sales or opportunities with local magazines, but that's probably the only magazines I read too much, except maybe a hobby magazine.
Right.
There's something I'm interested in, but for the most part, it's a local magazine that I'm just trying to get a sense of what's happening or who's who or what's going on or what's some good restaurants or things that I didn't even know in the area.
Yeah, it's all about niche.
Yeah.
And if you can still find your niche, and like trade magazines are still doing quite well.
Yeah.
Now most of the good trade magazines have developed a strong web presence to go along with that. Yep. But whether it's the niche is lifestyle, or if it's a business, manufacturing, as long as you have that niche and you're doing better than the competitors, and you're thinking and you can care about your advertisers and your readers, you're still going to do very well in the industry.
So now you have a unique filter where you're running a business and you're an entrepreneur and you understand the idea and the complexities of being a business owner, but you also get to meet the executives and all the most successful entrepreneurs in South Florida and in Florida and Tampa and that. As somebody's thinking about running or starting a business in Florida, what are some of the reasons you're seeing people out there starting, and kind of walk me through what you think of the entrepreneurial landscape down here? If you could just kind of give me your perspective, because you get to see it in two different eyes, which I love personally, and then from some of the best of the best.
Well, if you look at South Florida, we're obviously not a Fortune 500 destination.
Yep.
And that's going to change a little bit over the next decade. We'll do better, but not dramatically.
Yep.
So we're made up of small businesses. I mean, South Florida is one of the capitals of small business in the world.
80% of our GDP comes from small business owners.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we're a little insulated from the overall economy. Things are doing extremely well here. But what I've seen is people who are working really hard for somebody, and they want it on their own, and you can make a smooth transition. There's a lot of guys out there who just get disgruntled where they're working, and they're going to take that attitude into their own business, and they're going to fail.
Yeah.
You can't be a part-time entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It doesn't work unless you're just absolutely brilliant, which I'm not.
I try to surround myself with people smarter than me. Do you think the business environment here in Florida is conducive to the entrepreneur and getting in a startup and actually starting a business?
Absolutely, because it's so easy. There's no old boys network down here.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get involved in the community. There are thousands of different things you could do on a night in South Florida that's business oriented. And what I like is when I talk to somebody who really focuses on industry. I've talked to wealth advisors who say, I'm just focusing in on lawyers, so they go to every law event. But I can give you hundreds of examples.
Yeah.
So it's a strategy. I mean, I saw the billboard last year and I thought, wow, this is kind of brilliant. It was a lawyer, divorce lawyer, who just takes male clients.
Yep.
I'd never heard of that before, but what a great strategy.
Do you know, I tested this. I called them and said that, listen, my sister is looking for a divorce attorney. I've just been recommended you. And they're like, I thought they were using it as an advertising scheme.
Yeah.
They won't take her.
Wow.
They actually
funny.
stick to it. I thought it was going to be a scheme, and they completely don't. They stick to it. And then the billboards have been creative now. My favorite one still is that the air conditioning one.
Yeah,
it says your wife is hot.
Right.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Air conditioning.
Right. Exactly.
That company too, and I don't know if this is true or not. Somebody told me that now they're just a straight marketing company. They don't even actually do it. They just source leads for all the air conditioning companies out there.
That's brilliant.
That's what I thought too.
Yes.
I was like, I like talking about being where you don't have to work a lot, and all you did was just set up some good billboards, came up with a slogan, and generate leads. So
wow, that's terrific.
So you talk about this being a great place to be a business owner and entrepreneur because it's not the good old boys network, and the part that I've been happy about, because I moved down here from the Northeast also, is that it's because it's relatively transient and new. People didn't want to. It was actually a great book I was reading, The 25 Most Influential People in Developing Florida. George Lemieux wrote it, the Senator George Lemieux.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we got rid of mosquitoes and got air conditioning that nobody wanted to live down here. So it's 60, 70 years that people have really been growing it. So you don't have that group that you got to try to get in, the families that dominate, although there are some successful families here. Sure. You could still be able to build a business, and people, for the most part, are very open to working with people that are coming down here starting businesses. And I think you have resources like yourself, resources inside the community that can help get you launched. When you started your business, was there any influential people for you or resources you used to get going at all, or because you've been down here and you had your expensive business journal and you kind of figured it out on your own?
No, there's always people that are influential. I don't know this person well, but when I was working for the Economic Development publication, I started calling for leads out of a publication called Black's Guide, and it was so this was a commercial real estate broker in New Jersey, and when he was going to take out a client, it would take him a day to go to the different buildings, get their brochures, staple them all together, put a presentation together. So he decided that he was going to create a book with tabs from different counties, and it would list all of the available Class A listings, Class B listings. It told you amount of square footage, contiguous square footage, rental rates, developer, broker. So he did away with that, and it was incredibly successful. So I was calling out of that and getting some of his clients to advertise in our national book, and there was nothing like this in South Florida. So I flew up to one of his seminars. Yeah. And after seminars, I told him I'm taking dinner, and he goes, "Oh no, I'm going home." And then I begged him, and I told him what I was doing. So I had dinner with him, and he told me that McGraw-Hill was about to purchase a publication, get one going in South Florida, and they'll buy you within a year. So I came back. It's kind of an interesting story. Not so happy an ending, but so I came back, and one of the guys who was working for me was also a very dear friend, great guy named Ben Falk, and we put this plan together. Yeah. And then Ben, over months, convinced me to bring in a third partner, and I didn't want to bring this partner in. You have a gut feeling about somebody, but we brought him in, and within a week of bringing him in, I got a call from a former employee of this gentleman, Jim Black. And he put all the data together for South Florida. He was an inside guy, had no personality, couldn't talk to anybody. So he called me. I had dinner with him, and he said, "Let's be partners." And I went back to my two other potential partners who were starting. Told them what happened and said, "We can beat this guy. He can't sell." And we were ready to do it. And within a week, that third partner was his partner.
Get out.
So and they beat us to the punch.
Anything you can learn from that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you give people the benefit of the doubt, but you have to test them a bit. Yeah. And really, really go with your gut. Yeah. And I was very young back then, and there were signs, and I didn't pick them up. Yeah. So you live and you learn.
Yeah. Any of the signs you could share?
Sure. sometimes the stories don't match.
Yep.
They say one thing, and even if it's slight, there's that and I've only known a half a dozen people like this in my life that really, and they're serial liars.
Yeah.
And their reputations are out there that this particular person can't do business in South Florida anymore.
Yeah.
It's, he's done this to too many people.
Yeah.
And, but again, you got to learn from your mistakes. You got to test people. I don't think you can go through life not being open. You have to be open.
Yep.
But you have to have just let that grain of salt, come up and not move so quickly on some things.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, there's been some studies coming out that we actually have multiple brains, and one of the brains is in our stomach and our gut, and that's actually something that can tell you what's going on. So I think people have to trust that more than they think. But I think you're right that if you're evaluating a partnership and evaluating being in business with somebody, you have to spend a decent amount of time with them. And what you're doing is asking lots of questions, not with any direction maybe with the question, but just to try to get them to see if they mess up in it. So are they being transparent, honest, and you don't even know where the conversations are going to go, but as long as you spend more time with it, they're all of a sudden you'll see and that authenticity will come out in a positive manner, or you're going to see some things that are not, just don't feel comfortable or don't feel right to you before you get in. A partnership's like a marriage, and I think some people don't appreciate that, and they also think, I think I trust to a fault sometimes, right? I believe in the good of people, and I'm okay getting burned every so often, just to make sure I don't have to live life thinking everybody's out to screw me.
Right.
And so
I think that's important.
Yeah. I think it's important for your psyche, right? I think if you're in South Florida, it's a tough one. When I moved down here, and the industry I was involved in, you have a decent amount of shady people, and you have a lot of, and I joke, some of the black sheep from families will move down here because they burned all the bridges up in the Northeast and they come down here. And so it took me a while to not take it personally, but also be able to kind of to feel out what people were thinking. What I found is the best way I found to do it was to ask a lot of questions, get a sense of who they are, get them around other people, get some other people's opinions on it before you're making a decision. But I think as a partnership, it's a marriage, and it's not something you rush into. It's just like you said with hiring. You do it slow, and then if it's not a good marriage, then at that point, maybe you got to make a quick decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right.
I had an 18-month marriage. I called my starter marriage.
Yeah.
I realized with my second wife my current wife, who's awesome, she complained about the same stuff as my first wife, and I realized I was the one at fault, not the first wife too.
We live the same story. I lasted 30 years with my first wife.
Good. So that was a big starter marriage.
It was a long starter marriage. Great lady. We're best friends, but you're right. And that's the biggest thing that people have a hard time is looking in the mirror. And I love when people give me constructive criticism, any kind of criticism, because I'll take it in. I'll really think about it. More times than not, they're right. Yeah. And a lot of times it's you. For me, it's I try to do so much in a day, and sometimes I'm not thinking of a quick something I say to somebody or I don't say to somebody who's working with me. And, we started this conversation by talking about it's all about the people. Yep. So that's my biggest weakness. And I really try every day to, I think I've gotten a little better at it, but I got to get much better at it. Yeah.
Well, you brought up two points I just thought of. It's, as you gain scale, you have more people that might work for your company. And you have more complexity in life too. You don't even think about how little interactions with people that are part of your company can have a big impact. Like
Absolutely.
I didn't realize because I was looking at my phone and I walked past somebody that they were upset that I didn't say hello. And I should have said hello. I'm walking around. They don't see me that often in maybe one office. And I should have made sure to engage. And that little engagement could be real positive. And I just didn't catch it. And it's trying to be more aware of how impactful you could be on people's lives. If they know that you're the person that's kind of running the company and writing the paychecks, you got to be aware of it. Yeah. The other part of you talked about criticism. One of the things I share with people is there's different ways to take feedback. I said there's 4 ways to take feedback. And I teach all my employees this, my leaders this. And when I give feedback, I realize people react 4 ways. They get real defensive. Right. Meaning they start saying all the reasons why they did something that probably wasn't right. The second way is people go silent. I give them feedback. I say, you're late all the time. They're just, They don't say anything. Right. The third way is they strike back and they tell you why all the things you do is screwed up and wrong.
Right.
And then the fourth way, which I found is the best way for me to accept feedback, is to take it as a gift. And I found if people are going to be do the uncomfortable conversation with me to tell me that something's wrong with me or that there's something there that I did that upset them, even if only 30% of what they're saying is probably accurate, the fact that they had the gumption enough to tell me that, I should accept that as a gift and try to, even if it's not completely accurate, there's some truth to it.
Yes.
And I have to try to learn. And I found if I ask clarification questions on the feedback or criticism they're giving me, and I repeat back to them what I said, even if I don't know if I'm going to change or not after I listen to it, it actually helps my relationship with them. They actually then believe and see that I actually care about their feedback and that I want to hear it. And even if I don't change, they feel better. And I feel like I've understand them a little bit better to be able to do it. And I find that most people struggle with taking feedback as a gift, and instead they become defensive or strike back. And I found that when I do that with somebody I work with and I'm giving them feedback and they strike back, it makes me not want to work with them as much.
Right.
And it makes me sit there and go, are they somebody that can evolve and develop or not? And so I think if you work for somebody or you have people that work for you, you got to start thinking feedback more as a gift. Just like you said, the criticism is something that you look forward to because it's not easy for people to give. And if they're going to do it, it's a gift.
And I think you just said it, but I'll say it maybe a little different way. I think a lot of it's about maturity, emotional maturity.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I didn't have it, and I do now. I've had it for a while, but I wasn't ready when I was in my 20s, my young 30s to take that kind of criticism. I thought it was, just somebody saying you're bad. And it's not. It's somebody saying, hey, I think you could be better.
Yeah, it's whenever I have a younger person working for me, and they struggle with feedback, I call it a youthful arrogance, right? It's like they think they're the man, they think they're the woman, that they can do everything, and they think that they're right and they got it all figured out.
Absolutely.
And it's not because there's a negative bone in their body, it's just because it's that time in the seat sometimes help. And the people that can get that quicker by taking feedback can go, their learning curve will improve and they'll be able to move forward with their career much faster. Talking about moving forward with your career, you decided to start another business. That's the alternative business.
Alternative Revenue Solutions.
Alternative Revenue Solutions.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing for a business owner to do. You have running a big operation already with the media company, and then you're starting another business. Tell me about how you do that, because we go back to our parents and they had one job and doing that way. Now you have two businesses, you're competing priorities going through, you're thinking about reoccurring revenue and reoccurring cash flow from multiple income sources. So if media gets hit, you're still making money elsewhere in that.
Right.
But talk me through how you decided to start taking on another initiative.
Sure.
And a little bit about it.
So actually, I told you that some of the funding came from a severance package.
Yeah.
And part of that was I had to sign a 2-year non-compete. So I actually started ARS and then started the media company afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I couldn't be in publishing, and I was thinking about who I most admired / was jealous of.
Yeah.
And it was my friends who were in the insurance business.
Yeah.
Once they have a client, unless they mess it up, and it's hard to mess it up, they got it for life.
Yeah.
They'll only leave because they don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
So I was saying, okay, so this is, and I know payouts are early in the first couple of years, and then they go less, but they're building up a base, and it's all residual.
Yep.
And each year, they can pile on and pile on. So I looked at the benefit industry and said, everybody's out there selling these benefits, all types of different benefits, to employers for their employees. And I said to myself, well, I don't want to do that, but I don't see many people, or any, selling these types of benefits to companies who have large-scale customers, 10,000 customers or more, and they're paying them on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So that was the beginning of the evolution of the company. And I learned, I did a little studying and found out there's this type of insurance called involuntary unemployment insurance that you can sell if you pack it inside a legal association, which we have one. It's about $50,000 to start an association, and this involuntary unemployment insurance will pay a debt off if you lose your job. So I started in the credit counseling business.
Yep.
So people are going through the credit counseling. They're paying $500 a month for 4 years to get out of debt, and they're paying much lower interest rates than they would do if they did it on their own. So they have to stay in this program for the 4 years, 5 years, however it takes them.
So can I ask a question? Because I think that people might not be able to completely grasp the concepts that you're going through. It took me 2 times when you said it to try to understand it all that. But can you talk about kind of just the process you do to start seeing a business opportunity, exploring a business opportunity, and kind of stress testing it to see if it's worthwhile? Because what you saw was an area where people were making recurring revenue, that you thought that you could be able to do it. You found a niche in the market to be able to do it. And you were able to create a business around it that's been long-standing, and you went and kind of tested the theory out a little bit. Can you just kind of give a little bit of the process of somebody that might do it? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're right. When I explain ARS, I can go on, and people don't get it. So thank you for cutting me off, and I can go in a different direction with you. So to me, it's about what ARS was. It's about finding pain in an industry. Yep. So it's just talking to people, whether you're having a meeting with them at a bar, finding out what their business is, finding out what their pain is, and then being able to come up with a solution for it. So you can't always do that, but I've found in 4 or 5 industries that we can. And we have different programs that fit into those industries. But to me, the greatest thing you can do for somebody is kill the pain. Yep. So that's pretty much what we do.
And do you find that pain just by asking questions and trying to see where they are? Do you find it listening just for people complaining about an area on it?
You ask questions, and people say, "Tell me about your business." Yep. And I said, "If you could change 2 things in it, what would it be?" And the first thing I heard was, "Well, my people don't have a lot of money, so I'd like to help them save money." And the other thing is, if somebody misses a payment, they're out, and I'm not going to make my money back because there are lead costs involved. Yeah. So I said, okay, I can find a way for your people to save money, and I can keep people in the program if they lose their job.
So how do you balance running 2 businesses?
It's been hard. Yeah. But you get great people, who are working with you, and you treat them as your partners. Yeah. And it's interesting talking to you right now, Jeremy, because it's we're at a point right now where the presidents of a few businesses I own are exactly the people I want in those roles. Yeah. So I get to work a little more on the business and not in the business. But it's all, again, comes back to people.
Finding the right people.
Yeah.
Finding the right people. Is your typical day, the typical how you spend time, is it evolved and changed over the years? And is there's some things that you've learned from a balance perspective or time management perspective that has helped you be able to take advantage of opportunities like this and be comfortable with acquisitions? It sounds like a large piece is getting talented people around you, but is there other things that you've been able to figure out to help you through the balancing?
Yeah. It's mostly emotional intelligence, and where I wouldn't have been open to this probably 15 years ago. I have a good friend of mine who's a coach for he's a business coach for the management team at Lloyd's Bank in London. He's got some high-end clients, and he's a great guy. So we help each other, and I know that I need to stay out of the business to an extent, and I tend to get my hands in the nitty gritty. Yeah. And it's hard for entrepreneurs not to do. They want to have control. Yeah. But I've learned to let other people do things. If they make a mistake, we talk about it, they correct it, and it gives you more freedom to run your business. And so, and then the other thing is, I'm trying as I get older to really give back more to the community. Yeah. So being on boards and on several boards, and been chairing some major boards in town, and and that makes me whole.
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned 2 parts. Is I think oftentimes, if you look at the top pro athletes, the most successful people, they all have coaches. They all have people that might be peers, but they bounce ideas off of. Because you want that outside person, because you're stuck so much into the mix, to kind of give perspective to it. So, clearly that and you gave a good example of a coach there. And then the other part I found is that if you give back and you're grateful for the people around you and you're helping people out, it allows you to not get stuck dealing with something you think is a big deal that's not, because you're seeing some of the bigger picture of the community on it. Two last questions for you. One is, any hidden gems here in Florida, whether it's a restaurant, a place somebody should go check out and visit, anything like that that you would recommend that somebody typically won't know?
Yeah, I would say right here in the beach in Fort Lauderdale, when I mention this name, nobody knows about it, but it's a little hotel on the Intercoastal just north of Las Olas called The Pillars. And it's absolutely...
I feel like an idiot. Everybody always brings these great ideas up, and I never know them at that part. And I live probably a quarter of a mile from it.
Yeah, I think it's been written up as the best restaurant in Broward County.
Clearly, I got to read your magazines more.
Food is amazing there.
Yeah, The Pillars.
Yeah, and you need to be a member to go there, but the membership is, you don't have to pay. You just need to be sponsored by a couple people.
Okay.
So anybody wants to go, call me. I'll be able to help you. And then there's this really, down in Key Marathon, I found this that's called Isla Bella Resort.
Okay.
And it's just the most quaint, beautiful place to just get away. It's an hour and 20-minute drive.
Awesome.
And it's a great weekend getaway. And I used to do Naples all the time, and we tried this place, and we'll still do Naples because Naples is really lovely, but this was just terrific. Isla Bella.
Cool. All right, I didn't know that one. I'll check it out too. Last question for you. Can you share with us the most memorable day of your career?
Yeah. I guess it was, there's so many, but I think when I started Alternative Revenue Solutions, I had no idea whether it would work or not.
Total different industry for you.
Total different industry. I was used to people being able to call pretty much anybody here in South Florida and get a return call fairly quickly. And then I was cast into an industry that nobody had any idea who I was. So the first time we got a nice size account, which was about 4 months into starting the company, that day was a change moment for me.
You actually felt the business was sustainable at that point.
Yes. And we had one other person who said they were going to do it, but never implemented it. So when this one happened and we saw immediate results for them and for us, I said, this is it. I mean, I could make we could do really well with five major accounts, and we have 1,500 affiliates right now.
Wow.
So
well, I think it's a really big deal when you have this idea of what this business can look like. You've kind of tried it and put business plans, stress tested, kind of figured out if this could work or not. And then you put it in and then it's not working. And then you're not sure if you made the right decision or not, especially if you walked away from a job.
Right, exactly.
And then you actually realize that this could work and you get your first big client, big account. So very cool. I think it's a memorable day for a lot of people. Thanks for sharing on it. I appreciate everything you do for Florida and South Florida. I mean, obviously you're a huge impact in the community from a giving back perspective with the boards you sit on and your name comes up all the time. But your publications, the articles that are done and the influence that you have, you could feel it around the community. So thanks for the time, and I appreciate you being here.
Love being here, and you should mention that you're an Apogee winner. It's next week, and I know you don't like to plug yourself that much, but it's a big deal. We do this once a year, and you were when the judges looked at everything, you were on top of the list. So thank you for having me on, and I appreciate our relationship.
I appreciate that. Looking forward to next week. Thanks, guys.
Sounds great.
Thank you for watching the Upreneur podcast, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share this with anybody who you think needs to hear it.